Okay, so let's offer our respects to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay.
Okay, so what did we see in the previous class?
We continued with chapter 5.
Uh-huh.
And we finished chapter 5.
Yes, we finished chapter 5. So what did we see in that?
Anuatma and Vibhuatma,
Anuatma and
atom-
Vibhuatma. Yes,
atomic soul and the super soul.
very nice. Okay. What else did we see?
Material nature, super soul, and soul. Material nature, the instrumental cause, the super soul, the sanctioning cause, and the soul, the initiating cause.
Yes, the three doers, the three causes. Very nice. Okay, what else?
Samadarshina, someone who sees everyone with equal vision.
Ah, yes, Samadarshina, to see everyone with an equal vision. We will see something similar, if not the same, in today's class as well. Okay, what else?
That a person who neither rejoices nor suffer, he understands life. Something.
Okay, one who is equipoised
Yes.
is self-realized, or a self-realized person is equipoised. Okay, what else? So basically, chapter 5 dealt with which yoga?
Bhakti yoga.
No, karma yoga.
Karma yoga, yes. How many yoga systems have we seen so far in detail? In chapter 3, we saw
Chapter 3 is transcendent duty.
chapter 3's title.
Let me see. Chapter 3.
Bhakti yoga, no?
No. Chapter 3. Gita Mahatmya. Wait. Si lo tengo, karma, nishkama. Lo tengo anotado, calmado. Karma yoga, yeah, karma yoga.
Yeah, chapter 3 is titled Karma Yoga. Then in chapter 4, we saw?
Transcendental knowledge.
So which yoga system is that?
Bhakti yoga. No.
No.
Bhakti yoga is transcendental knowledge, no?
No, Bhakti yoga, chapter 12.
Jnana Yoga. We saw transcendental
Jnana.
knowledge is Jnana
Jnana.
Yoga. Okay. And now in chapter 6, we will be seeing Dhyana Yoga. So the word yoga means to be one, okay, with the Lord. So when we unite with the Lord on the basis of our work, it is called as karma yoga. When we unite with the Lord on the basis of jnana or transcendental knowledge, it is called as jnana yoga. And when we unite with the Lord on the basis of meditation, then that is dhyana yoga. Krishna has not yet touched upon pure bhakti yoga. He has touched upon it in parts, but pure bhakti yoga, he will talk about from chapter 7 onwards, because the middle six chapters of the Bhagavad Gita deal exclusively with bhakti. The first 6 chapters deal mainly on how karma leads to bhakti. Okay. And the last 6 chapters talk about how jnana leads to bhakti. But the middle 6 sections, the cream of the Bhagavad Gita, the real nectar is in the middle 6 chapters. So you see, Krishna has taken 2 chapters to explain karma yoga, because as he himself said, it's a very, very complex subject matter. He said that it's very, very difficult to understand the intricacies of karma. We saw that verse. So because it is so intricate to understand, he has dedicated 2 chapters to explain karma yoga. So in chapter 3, he explains karma yoga, and in chapter 5, he goes into great detail of explaining the same concepts, but he goes into even greater detail. And chapter 4 dealt with jnana yoga or transcendental knowledge. So now chapter 6 is titled dhyana yoga or dhyana yoga or ashtanga yoga. The word ashta means 8, and ashtanga yoga has 8 steps. So therefore it's called as ashtanga yoga. So now in chapter 6, Krishna talks about how one practices ashtanga yoga. Now what's the connecting link between chapter 4 and chapter 5? We saw here in text 27-28, Krishna is talking, just as how one can attain liberation by doing the above things, all these things where he spoke about doing nishkama karma yoga. In the same way, towards the end of the chapter, Krishna says, in the same way, one can attain liberation by engaging in Ashtanga Yoga. So here he gives us a preview of Ashtanga Yoga by saying that you have to shut out all external sense objects, keep the eyes and vision concentrated between the 2 eyebrows, suspend the inward and outer breaths within the nostrils, controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. So here he has given us a preview to Dhyana Yoga. And therefore, this is the verse that connects us from chapter 5 to chapter number 6. Okay. Okay, we need 2 volunteers to read. Who can read today?
I can read the translation if nobody wants.
Okay. And for the other text, we need 1
Or
volunteer.
other volunteers that haven't other volunteers that haven't spoken yet. But if nobody wants, I can do the translation.
Okay. So we need 1 more volunteer.
I can do Mataji if nobody else wants to.
Okay. So thank you, Mehak and Komal. Let's begin. Please repeat Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om
Om Namo Bhagavate
Namo
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Okay, so chapter 6, as I said, is titled Dhyana Yoga, and it has a total of 47 verses. But before we see the chapter, we have to understand why we need to learn this chapter. What are the benefits? What is the falashruti of reading, reciting, learning this particular chapter? So this falashruti, these histories are from the book called Gita Mahatmya, and the Gita Mahatmya is from the Padma Purana. It's a conversation between, Gita Mahatmya is a conversation between which 2 personalities?
Shiva and Parvati?
Yes, Lord Shiva
Lord
and
Shiva.
Parvati. And originally this was a conversation between which two personalities?
Vish, Vishnu and Lakshmi.
Yes, exactly. Lord Vishnu and
Lord Vishnu and
Lakshmi.
Lakshmi.
So the history goes that there is a village called Pratishtanpur by the by the banks of the river Godavari. Now in this village, there was a king called Janashruti. And this Janashruti was very much loved by all the people very much. The reason being, he was a very, very pious king. He did a lot of charity, lot of austerity. He would do a lot of yagyas. And because of his doing the yagyas, it would always rain at the right time, in the right quantities in the kingdom. And therefore the crops would grow nicely. They were not affected. The crops would not be affected by the pests, and therefore people would be prosperous. And his yagyas, when he did the yagyas, the fumes of the yagyas would reach the gardens of heaven up to Nandavan, and the leaves of the kalpa vrikshas, of kalpa vriksha means desire trees. So in the gardens of heaven there are kalpa vrikshas or desire trees, and there the leaves of these desire trees, they would turn black by the fumes of his yagyas. And the branches and the leaves of this tree would bend down as if they are offering respects to the king. So Janashruti was very popular even amongst the demigods. Even the demigods liked him very much. And they would reside in his kingdom also. Some of the demigods would also reside in his kingdom. Now once, in order to bless him, some demigods, they took the form of swans and they flew in his kingdom above his palace in order to bless him. And as the swans were flying above his palace, there was one particular swan or one particular demigod that flew ahead of the others. So the other swans told the first swan, "Why are you going ahead so fast? Why are you ignoring the king? Don't you see that he's such a pious king?" So the swan ahead in front, he said that, "Is your king Janashruti as powerful as the sage Raikva?" He asked this question. So when these swans were having this conversation and they were flying above the king's palace, the king happened to be on the terrace of his palace and he overheard this conversation. And now he wants to meet Raikwa. He wants to know who is he and he wants to meet him. So what he does is he sends his chariot driver. The chariot driver's name is Maha. So Janashruti tells Maha that, "I want to meet Raikwa. You please go and search where he is. Where does he live?" And stuff like that. So Maha immediately he goes in search, and he goes to Kashi, Gaya, Mathura. He goes to many cities and in search of Raikwa. And finally he finds him in Kashmir. And in Kashmir he finds him sitting on a cart under a tree outside a temple. So Maha approaches him and he inquires from him and he tells him, why are you living here? What is your full name? You are such an elevated person. Why are you sitting in this place? And where do you live? Raikwa immediately he replies, he just says that, "I am fully satisfied. I do not require anything." Now, Raikwa, he's a great sage. He's on the level where he can see through the person. And he sees that Maha, this chariot driver Maha, has not come to surrender and he's not in a submissive mood. And he's just come to find out his details, right? He's not submissive and surrendered. So therefore, he just tells him that, "I'm fully satisfied. I do not require anything." Now, Maha also understands what has happened. And then he goes back and he informs the king. What's the name of this king?
Janashruti?
Yes, Janashruti in the kingdom of,
Jana.
what's the name of his,
Shruti.
of the city?
Ah, okay. Mm,
It starts with a P and it's on the banks of the river.
In the banks of Godavari.
Ah, yes, on the banks of the river Godavari. Who remembers the name of the city? Let's see.
Nasik.
What's that?
Nasik.
No. Pratishtanpur. Okay. And what's the name of the chariot driver?
Maha.
Maha. And what's the name of the great sage?
Great sage Raiku.
Raikva. Raikva.
Raikwa.
Raikva. Okay. Okay. So now the king is informed by Maha where this great sage Raikva is. So the sage, now the king, he loads his chariot with many expensive jewelry and expensive silk cloth, and he goes to meet the sage. He sees the sage, he fell at his feet, and he offered him the silks and the jewels that he has brought for him. Now the sage is angry and he says that, "Oh foolish king, load all your stuff back in your chariot and leave this place." Because the king, again, he is not inquiring with a submissive attitude to Raikva. And of course, Raikva, he is renounced. He is not interested in all this jewelry and this cloth. What is he going to do? He's renounced. He's completely renounced. He's detached. Then now the king, with devotion in his heart, then he falls at his feet and he asks him for forgiveness and requests him to be merciful to him. And then, with a submissive attitude, he inquires from him, "How have you achieved such high renunciation and devotion?" What do you think the sage Raikva replied? Who can guess?
With Dhyana Yoga.
With Dhyana Yoga. Okay. Anybody else wants to try?
Reading the chapter 6.
Reading the chapter 6. Yes. Every day he says that he reads chapter number 6. That's why we are going to do chapter 6 now. Okay. So now the king has learned this chapter from Raikwa, and and the king also starts to recite chapter number 6 every day. Now, in the course of time, an airplane arrives and takes the king back to Vaikuntha. And the sage also, after some time, attains Vaikuntha and he attains the service to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So, the Falashruti of this chapter is one attains detachment, and the other attains the service to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So, this is the Falashruti of chapter number 6. Okay, let's read the connection between the two chapters.
Okay, I'll read, right, Komal? You're reading the translation, correct?
Yes.
Connection between chapter 5 and 6. In chapter 5, Krishna explained how to achieve liberation through Nishkama Karma Yoga. And at the end of the chapter, he explained how to achieve that same liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. Now, in chapter 6, Krishna will describe the process of Ashtanga Yoga in greater detail. Before practicing advanced stages of Ashtanga Yoga, as described in text 5.27 and 5.27 and 5.28, one must become purified by Nishkama Karma Yoga. One must be in full control of mind. One must be completely indifferent to and unaffected by all material things.
So this is a prerequisite for anybody who wants to follow the Ashtanga Yoga process. He must be purified already by doing Nishkama Karma Yoga. His mind should be in full control and he should be completely detached to all material things. These are the prerequisites for anyone who wants to follow the Ashtanga Yoga. So this chapter is divided into 6 sections and we'll see them as we go through it. Let's read section 1.
Oh, so question. So if we don't fulfill those prerequisites, so we cannot do Ashtanga Yoga.
Yeah, you will not be successful in your attempt. You will not achieve the final goal of Ashtanga Yoga.
Okay.
Okay, let's read
And
this.
I remember, Mataji, that you have once we were in chapter 5, I guess, You were
Okay.
telling that Ashtanga Yoga is the most difficult path also. If even if you miss one of it, you cannot attain the moksha, right?
Correct.
But it's not like similar to bhakti, because in bhakti you can start with uh, from anywhere, but here Ashtanga you have to complete, like go from the scratch, from zero up to the eighth, the moksha. And if you miss
Exactly.
any of this, you fail
Yes.
in the process.
Yes. So there are 8 steps. Let's say one has successfully done 5, for example, and not done the rest. Then what the person has done is lost. Again, he has to go from the beginning. But in Bhakti Yoga, we carry on from where we left off in the next lifetime. Why? Because in Bhakti Yoga, we are depending on the mercy of the Lord. But in Ashtanga Yoga, the person is on his own strength. He is trying to achieve the supreme. So the same example, the cat taking the young one by its mouth. So the kitten is on the mercy of the mother, and the other example is the monkey holding on to the mother on its own strength, holding on the back of its mother on its own strength. So Ashtanga yogis are like that baby monkey, holding on to the mother on their own strength. And bhakti yogas and those who practice bhakti yoga are like that kitten who are completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Okay.
Section 1, 6.1 to 6.4, Advancing in Yoga through Detached Work. Ashtanga yogis, like Nishkama Karma yogis, engage in detached work to advance.
Okay, let's see 6.1.
अथ षष्ठोऽध्यायः श्रीभगवानुवाच अनाश्रितः कर्मफलम् कार्यं कर्म करोति यः स सन्न्यासी च योगी च न निरग्निर्न चाक्रियः.
Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty."
So here yet again, see Krishna, again he is stressing on the importance of not giving up one's duties. He said this in chapter 3, again he said this in chapter 5, and now again chapter 6 begins with the same point. Krishna again is stressing that one should not give up his duties. What is he saying here? One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated, which means one who is doing his prescribed duties, whatever are his obligations, he is doing that work. That person is in the renounced order of life. That person already is renounced. And he is the true mystic, Krishna says. Not he who lights no fire. So lighting fire is for yagyas. Normally when people go to the forest and practice Ashtanga yoga, they don't do yagyas, right? So Krishna is saying, he who lights no fire and performs no duty is not the true mystic. In fact, the true mystic is one who does his prescribed duties, who works as he is obligated, and he's unattached to the fruits of his work. So we don't have to give up the work, we have to give up the fruits of the work. So this is the third time that Krishna has repeated this. Let's read this text.
Monkeys make an external show of renunciation by not accepting clothing and by living naked in the forest. In this way, they consider themselves renunciants, but actually, they are very busy enjoying sense gratification with dozens of female monkeys. Such renunciation is called Markata Vairagya, the renunciation of a monkey. Markata. One cannot be really renounced until one actually becomes disgusted with material activity and sees it as a stumbling block to spiritual advancement. Renunciation should not be falgu, temporary, but should exist throughout one's life. Temporary renunciation or monkey renunciation is like the renunciation one feels at a cremation ground. When a man takes a dead body to the crematorium, he sometimes thinks, "This is the final end of the body. Why am I working so hard day and night?" Such sentiments naturally arise in the mind of any man who goes to a crematorial ghata. However, as soon as he returns from the cremation grounds, he again engages in material activity for sense enjoyment. This is called samsana vairagya, smasana vairagya, or markata vairagya.
So talking about renunciation, as you say, Krishna here, he warns. Why he is saying this right in the beginning of the chapter is because for Ashtanga Yoga, first thing is they have to go to the forest. So here Krishna is warning against taking premature renunciation. That is called by our acharyas as Markata Vairagya. Vairagya means renunciation, and Markat is the Sanskrit word for monkey. So Markata Vairagya means monkey renunciation. Now, what do we mean by monkey renunciation? Externally, if you see, even monkeys are renounced because they are in the forest, they are moving from one tree to the other tree, they have no clothes. So it appears that they are renounced, but they are not renounced because they are busy enjoying sense gratification with other female monkeys. So externally, it appears that they are renounced, but they are not. So when somebody takes premature renunciation, but his mind is still not pure, his heart is still not pure, and he still has the desire for sense gratification, the mentality is still there to enjoy senses, then that is called as Markata Vairagya or Falgu Vairagya. Falgu Vairagya means temporary renunciation. Why this is a temporary renunciation? Because sooner or later he is going to fall down. He is going to indulge in sense gratificatory activities because the heart is not yet pure, not yet, the desires are still there. The problem has not been uprooted, right? So it's called as Falgu Vairagya and also called as the Shmashana Vairagya. Shmashana comes from in Hindi word, it's called as Shamshan or crematorium grounds. We have seen, I have also seen so many times in my personal life that when people go for a funeral, then the talk is, oh, yes, this is the final end of the body. This is a reminder. Why are we working so hard at night? So people will talk a little bit about renunciation when they are at this crematorium or when they see a dead body, such thoughts come to one's mind, right? But then very soon, they are going back to their sense gratificatory activities, their daily materialistic activities. So that thought of renunciation only is for a certain period, for a short period and a very temporary period. So that is also called as the Shmashana Vairagya. So Markata Vairagya, Falgu Vairagya, Shmashana Vairagya are the terms that are given by the acharyas. Okay, 6.2.
Yam sanyasamiti prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana.
Translation. What is called renunciation you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself to the Supreme, O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification.
So Krishna is saying that renunciation or sannyasa or vairagya is equal to yoga. And what is yoga, according to Krishna?
Linking oneself with the Supreme.
The word yoga means to link oneself with the Supreme. The term yoga in the modern times is understood to be only the asanas, only the exercises, yes? But that is not the real meaning of the word yoga. Yoga means to link oneself with the Supreme. So Krishna is saying that renunciation is the same as yoga or linking with the Supreme. Now, what does he say? One can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So renunciation does not only mean Renouncing sense gratification. Renouncing means to renounce the desire for sense gratification. Even the desire should not be in the heart. Let's read this.
One who has not renounced his intention to enjoy sense gratification, that is to say, his hankering for material fruits, cannot be a yogi. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, this quote and unquote. True renunciation is not only renouncing sense gratification. True renunciation is equivalent to renouncing the desire for sense gratification.
So every yogi must be renounced, whether he's following karma yoga or jnana yoga or ashtanga yoga. Every yogi must be renounced. And just as how all sannyasis must be renounced, in the same way, all the yogis must be renounced. And that renunciation does not only mean renouncing sense gratification, but also the desire for sense gratification. Let's read this.
Real sannyasa yoga or bhakti is equal to knowledge of one's constitutional position as living entity and acting accordingly. Constitution of living entity is no separate independent entity, but part and parcel of the supreme. And conditioned state is when the living entity is entrapped by material energy. It is called conditioned state. Need to revive our original constitutional position.
So what is the constitutional position of every living entity? What is our original position?
To be a servant of the Lord.
We are all eternal servants of the Lord. That is our real constitutional position or our constitutional position. But now we are in a conditioned state. What do we mean by the term conditioned state? What are we conditioned by?
By Maya.
By Maya. Okay. Anything else? Ignorance.
No, that we forget where we are and who we are.
Okay. No, but we are conditioned by Maya. Anything else to add to it?
What's written on the
Ignorance.
The soul is eternally the servant of Krishna. Now, if the soul is trapped in the body of a dog, the entity has to behave like a dog. The dog is going to bark. When the soul is in the body of a pig, the pig is going to eat stool and think that this is great food. Yes. So that is called as a conditioned state.
So our samskaras and also the nature or the
Yes, we have acquired a certain nature because of our past activities. Because of our past activities, we have a certain nature, and because of that nature, we acquire a certain kind of body. Let's say somebody's nature is, I love to sleep. Then he will acquire a body where he will have unlimited facility to sleep. Polar bear, they sleep for months. Yes. If somebody loves eating meat, then he will be given the body of a lion or a tiger where he has the facility to eat meat. Now, so that's a conditioned state. That tiger is in the soul in the body of a tiger is conditioned. Now, because that soul is in the body of the tiger, that tiger is going to eat meat. Can we expect the tiger to attend Bhagavad Gita classes and attain self-realization?
No.
That's a conditioned state, isn't it? So what is the solution? We need to revive our original constitutional position. That is Bhakti Yoga. Okay, let's go to 6.3.
Arurukshormunegyogam karma karanamuchyate yogarudhasya tasyaiva shamah karanamuchyate.
Translation. For one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means.
So here Krishna is explaining two stages of Ashtanga Yoga. See the first word in the verse, Arurukshor, and the first word in line 3, Yoga Rudhasya. So basically, Ashtanga Yoga has two stages, the Yoga Rurukshu stage and the Yoga Rudha stage. One second. See here, Yoga Rurukshu stage and the Yoga Rudha stage. The beginning stage is called as a Yoga Ruruksha stage, and the advanced stage is the Yoga Rudha stage. Now, the word Ashta, as we described, means 8, and there are 8 limbs. So, these are the 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Let's see in detail what this means. Let's read this first.
The path of the classical yoga system described in the Vedic tradition is long and severe. Conceived by the ancient sage Patanjali, the system is called Ashtanga Yoga or the Eightfold Yoga system. It is a scientific psychic method to gradually raise the consciousness higher levels of awareness to higher levels of awareness culminating in samadhi. The 8 progressive steps of the Ashtanga Yoga system are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi.
Okay, so let's see each one of them.
Yama, the don'ts, involves avoiding things that hinder attainment of the goal like illicit sex, TV, movies, intoxication, foods such as meat, fish, and eggs. Niyama, the do's. It refers to the beneficial activities like daily meditations, rituals, exercise one has to perform. Third, asana, hatha yoga, prepares the body to stay in different postures for long periods. Results result is a healthy, slim body, but the real purpose is to gradually train the body to stay in the same position for hours, days, and eventually, even months and years, until one can sit in the lotus position for hours and days without shifting and being uncomfortable. One cannot, for example, successfully raise the kundalini. Fourth, pranayama, lower the breathing cycle. It prolongs one's life, but the real aim is to be able to sit in trance and meditate. First on the prana, which means life airs, and chakras, energy centers. Then on the inner self, and finally on the super soul. By gradually extending the breathing cycle, one can subdue the actions of the body and mind. When the mind becomes still, one can turn it from being engaged in the external world to being focused within.
So Yama, what we should not do. And Niyama, what we should do. The don'ts and the do's. Asana are the postures, so that the body is comfortable sitting in one posture for long periods of time. And that way, then the person can raise the Kundalini from the lower to the higher levels. Pranayama is breath control. Now, what is the side benefit of asana? It results in a healthy, slim body. But that is not the real purpose of Ashtanga Yoga. That's a side benefit. What is the side benefit of pranayama? It prolongs one's life. So as we discussed before, one's lifespan is determined by the number of breaths. Okay, so many number of breaths one can take before death. So when we breathe slowly, then we are extending our lifespan. And when the breathing is accelerated, then we are reducing our lifespan. Therefore, people who practice yoga, where the breathing is slowed down and they take deep breaths, then they live for a longer life. But again, prolonging one's life is not the goal of Ashtanga Yoga. Let's see the other four.
Fifth, pratyahara. The senses are withdrawn from all external engagements. The self shifts awareness from the physical world to the inner world of the mind. The senses are forced to retract from the physical world and focus on the inner psychic world. Sixth, dharana. Through further hard practice, yogis able to maintain the focus of their consciousness progress to the stage of dharana, full fixation on the inner, subtle world of the mind. All sensual engagements have ceased, and the yogi perceives only the mind. There is no perception of sound, touch, form, taste, or smell, and thus no awareness of the external world. Only when one reaches the dharana state does dhyana, meditation, arise. Seventh, dhyana. Now the yogi begins to meditate and discovers the soul. The soul finally observes its own self as an illuminating particle of consciousness within the heart. Understanding that this is the real self, the mature yogi also sees the super soul. Meditation does not take place before one can completely cease all external sensual engagements and focus the consciousness on the self. Only then can one progress to the state of dhyana or meditation. Eighth, samadhi. The yogi has now reached the state called samadhi, the final goal of meditation, and is ready to leave the body through the process sometimes called raising the kundalini. The yogi pushes the soul out through the top of the skull and goes wherever the consciousness is fixed at that moment. The energy thus released is so immense that the body is sometimes consumed by fire.
So in Pratyahara, he begins to withdraw his external senses and shifts the focus to, to his inner self. So that is Pratyahara. In Dharana now, he can no longer perceive the five senses. So he cannot perceive sound, he cannot hear anything that's going on around him. He cannot perceive any of these five senses, sound, touch, form, taste, or smell. And he can only perceive the mind. Now, then after that, in dhyana, he is beginning to meditate. What is he meditating on?
On his real self, no? To
Uh-huh.
see the self, soul.
Yes. So
On his
he,
consciousness.
okay. And once he can successfully do his dhyana, what does he see that he could not see before?
Super soul. He sees the
The
super soul.
super soul, yes. An Ashtanga yogi, he can see if he's successful in his attempt, then he can actually see the super soul. Right now, we can perceive the super soul, we can perceive the presence by, for example, when we tend to do something wrong or there is a temptation, then we say that, no, I cannot say this because my consciousness pricks me. What is that consciousness that's pricking us? It is a super soul who is speaking to us, right? So we can perceive the super soul, but we cannot see the super soul. But the Ashtanga yogi, if he succeeds in his attempt, then he can see the super soul. So we learned, no, that the absolute truth is realized in three features: Brahm,
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The three ways in which one can realize the Lord. When one performs Jnana Yoga, he can realize Brahman. When one does Dhyana Yoga, he realizes the super soul. So he can see the super soul. And when one does Bhakti Yoga, then one realizes the Bhagavan aspect of the Lord. So this process is to realize the super soul. Then in Samadhi, what happens now? The person, he has blocked the 9 gates, the 9 openings of the body, everything is blocked. And then the force, the energy is so much in his body that the soul is forced to leave from the top of the skull, because all the other 9 openings are blocked. The soul has to come out somehow or the other. So the skull explodes, and from the top of the skull, the soul escapes. And because of the energy, the body is consumed by fire. Which character from the Mahabharata went through this process? He did Ashtanga Yoga, and then at the time of death, his body was consumed by fire, the skull exploded.
Karna.
Karna? I don't know about Karna. He went to the forest.
Dhritarashtra?
Dhritarashtra, yes, Dhritarashtra. So after the war, Dhritarashtra continued to live with the Pandavas. Yudhishthir was crowned king, but then Vidura, he was his well-wisher. So Vidura went and had a conversation with Dhritarashtra, and he told him that now it's time for you to concentrate on your because it's time for you to leave. You know, you're an old man, so now you have to accept the Vanaprastha order and go to the forest. So then he went to the forest. He followed the Ashtanga Yoga process, and then at the time of death, his skull exploded, and his body was consumed by fire. That was the end of Dhritarashtra. Let's read this.
Only when one has reached the state of samadhi can one begin to raise the kundalini. The yogi pushes the life airs, prana, from the Mula chakra, the lowest chakra, gradually up through the other chakras of the body until it reaches the heart chakra. From its seat there, the soul rises to the highest chakra at the top of the head, pushing the prana up through the different chakras constitutes a kundalini rising. As the kundalini is rising, the pressure inside the body becomes so great that the yogi must use the mastered asana and pranayama techniques to block all the holes in body lest the soul should escape through any one of them. The Vedic literature calls the body the city of 9 gates: anus, genitals, mouth, 2 nostrils, 2 ear holes, and 2 eyes. This type of yoga is extremely difficult to practice in the modern age. The yogis of yore would go to the forest to practice Ashtanga yoga and leave their bodies.
So why is this type of yoga difficult to practice in Kali Yoga? What is the difficulty?
Because there are no good
It
gurus
takes a lot of
also.
time.
What was that, Komal?
There are not
It takes,
enough. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, sorry.
Can
Yeah,
I speak?
Baraya?
Yeah.
Yes,
There are not enough gurus who are able to guide bonfire guru, no, who can guide the disciples
Okay.
for the right way to exit, and that's why in Kali Yuga, not many people are also in ignorance. They are more into material things.
Okay. Anybody else?
it takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time. How
To
much time does it
meditate.
take? How much time
I
does it take?
think Brahma, 60?
It
I
took
think
60,
Brahma said something like 60,000
yeah,
or
60,000 years.
60.
It took Valmiki. It took Valmiki 60,000 years of Dhyana Yoga.
How much
Oh.
it took to Dhritarashtra to come to the samadhi stage?
Oh,
I
I
don't know.
don't know. I don't know because the Mahabharata that I have seen, the time frame is not given.
So imagine if it took Dhritarashtra so many years. In the
Mataji, I have one question also.
Kali Yuga, it couldn't be performed so easily.
Yes. Yes. What's your question, Baraya?
That Dhritarashtra was so much into Maya. He was so much sansari, in attachment with his son Duryodhana and his other 99 sons. In spite of that, he being so much not in knowledge and always taking side of his children and so jealous, he could, get the moksha by meditating, and he exit with Ashtanga Yoga. How come he was such a blessed soul that he was given that opportunity?
Yeah, that's the magic of association. Because he was associating with Vidura, who's a pure devotee, he was able to do
Hmm.
it. Because Vidura opened his eyes. And that's what
Hmm.
the spiritual master can do to us. That's what a Vaishnava, a devotee can do to us. So that's why we focus so much on satsanga, on associating with the right kind of people. So because of the association of Vidura, Dhritarashtra's eyes were open. Otherwise, he would have continued to live in the kingdom with Yudhishthir. He would have never gone. Because Vidura went and coaxed him and showed him the path, that's why he went and he was able to attain. Um,
But Mataji, Vidura was there also when he was the king. There was no war when the Pandavas were there growing up. He was always seeking the company of Vidura, like he'll go and guide him. Even when uh, Lord Krishna came as a Shanti Doot, he also guided him how to, not do things, but still the Dhritarashtra won't listen to his advice. He will not give any importance. But after the war, um, I think the knowledge dawned, or whatever happened, the magic, as you said, the association, the company magic took place.
Yeah, so yes, Vidura tried to guide Dhritarashtra many times, but Dhritarashtra was completely blinded at that time. And of course, at that time, Vidura did not tell him to go to the forest because that time Dhritarashtra was still, it was not yet time for him to take Vanaprasth, to go to the forest. He was still ruling the kingdom. So that time, Vidura did not advise him to go to the forest and meditate. That advice was not given to him at that time. So this, if you read that chapter, Vidura comes down with very heavy, he very heavily chastises Dhritarashtra and coaxes him to leave.
Hmm. But he was advised by Bhishma Pitamaha many times in the past, Dhritarashtra, and the gurus, like great sages who visited, and they told him, even Sanjay, when he was narrating many times, he had the opportunity when Lord Krishna showed the Vishwarupa and other, he could have stopped the war, or
Yeah, so we have to understand also that we have minute independence and minute free will. So yes, we have association, and by association we benefit, but still the decision, that minute free will, that nobody takes away from us. So in the earlier cases, okay, and there are also some people, they will learn after they have lost a lot. See, the most intelligent class of people, they learn just by learning the Shastra. Lesser intelligent than them, they learn when they see other people going through some suffering, through other people's experiences, then they will learn. And third category of people, they learn when they themselves go through some bad experiences. So in case of Dhritarashtra, by now he has seen the death of his 100 sons. And even after seeing the death of his 100 sons, he continues to live in the kingdom, in the house of the same people who killed his sons. So that was his attachment to the kingdom. I mean, who would live with the killer of your son? Who would do that? But Dhritarashtra continued to live with, of course, he was given great respect by Yudhishthir, and Yudhishthir would consult him on matters, but still, your 100 sons were killed by these people. Yes. So Dhritarashtra was that person that he had to go through the experience of having seen the death of his 100 sons, and then eventually he has taken the advice of Vidura.
okay. Yeah. Sure, thank you. It makes sense, Mataji. Thanks.
Okay. Another side benefit of doing this Ashtanga yoga process is the yogi, he can develop some mystic powers. Mystic power. So there are some siddhis that they can attain. They can walk on water. They can make themselves very light. They can make themselves very heavy that nobody can move them. They can transport from one place to another place very quickly, you know. So these are the siddhis or mystic powers that they can attain. But again, attaining these siddhis is not the goal of Ashtanga Yoga. The goal of Ashtanga Yoga is to realize the super soul. But what happens is because of these side benefits, we saw some side benefits. Asana, what did we see? That it helps to get a slim and trim body. Then we saw that how the life can get extended by the breathing process, and then how the practitioners can develop some siddhis or some mystic powers. So the danger in following Ashtanga Yoga is sometimes they get distracted. Now they have got these mystic powers and they are feeling that, oh, people are worshiping me, I have this power. So then they get distracted from the goal and they forget that what really was the goal of this Ashtanga Yoga. Why am I doing this? I didn't do this because I wanted those siddhis, because I wanted those powers. So mostly it happens that they get distracted from the goal. And that's why there are people who have such powers and then they mislead the people and then people start to worship them thinking that, oh, this person is God. But actually they are siddhas who have acquired these powers because of doing Ashtanga Yoga. Just like, let's say we go for shopping and we go to a mall and I went to the mall because I wanted to buy shoes, a pair of shoes. Now the shoes are sold on the 5th floor. But while going to the 5th floor, I'm passing to the 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor. In the 1st floor, they are selling clothes. So I go and have a look. Oh, let me see what kind of clothes are there. Then I go to the 2nd floor, they are selling some electronic items. And I go and see, okay, what's the latest model of cell phone that has come in the market and what are the new features? I go and inquire, stuff like that. Then I go to the 3rd floor. On the 3rd floor, they are selling stuff for babies. Okay, my friend is expecting a baby and sometime in the future I have to buy something to gift the baby. So let me see what kind of stuff they have. Like that, I'm going and I'm getting distracted by the other things. And by the time I reach the 5th floor, the announcement is made. The mall is closing in 5 minutes. Please proceed towards the exit. So then I went to buy shoes, but I got distracted by other things. So in Ashtanga Yoga, that's what happens. They tend to get distracted by these other things, especially by the siddhis, by the mystic powers that they get. 6.4.
यदा हिनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मस्वनुषज्यते सर्वसङ्कल्पसन्न्यासी योगारूढस्तदोच्यते.
Translation. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desire, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities.
So see the word yoga ruddas in the last line. So here Krishna is describing the advanced stage or the yoga rudda stage. What is it? This is the stage when one has renounced all material desires. He does not act for sense gratification and he does not engage in fruitive activities. Fruitive activities, activities which will give him a result. So these three, under these three, this is the advanced stage is achieved when one fulfills these three conditions. Let's start section 2. Let's read this.
Section 2, 6.5 to 6.9. The Yoga Rudra stage, giving up work. A yogi may even give up Nishkama Karma Yoga when his mental control reaches the stage of regarding well-wishers, the envious, the pious, and the sinners equally.
Okay, so let's see the section. 6.5.
उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानं नात्मानमवसादये आत्मैव ह्यात्मनो बन्धुर् आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः.
Translation. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend to the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
So now Krishna is talking about mind control. Now, mind control is a prerequisite for Ashtanga Yoga. What is he saying? That this mind is the friend and as well as his enemy. Now, when can the mind become our friend and when does the mind become our enemy? Krishna explains in the next verse.
बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवः.
Translation. For him who has conquered the mind, is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
So the mind may be controlled or the mind may be not controlled. When the mind is controlled, it is our best friend. And when the mind is not controlled, then the mind becomes our greatest enemy, Krishna says. Let's read this.
The Bhagavad Gita enjoins that we elevate ourselves with our mind and not degrade ourselves with it. This intriguing verse indicates the volatile nature of our relationship with our mind. When we control our mind, our actions tend to be elevating. But when our mind controls us, our actions tend to be degrading. You can change your mind, but don't let your mind change you.
Yes, let's say we are in a situation where there is a temptation. So the mind is telling us, give in to the temptation, do this. Let's say a child is in a birthday party. Now the child is a vegetarian, but now in this birthday party, there is cake. There is no vegetarian cake. There is cake only with egg. So the mind of the child says, I want to enjoy the delicious cake. So the mind may make the child change. But if the child is intelligent, then he will change his mind. He will not let the mind change him. So we can change our mind if the mind is taking us towards the wrong path, but not let the mind change us.
Mataji, question.
Yes.
Here, when in this paragraph, the you can change your mind, that you is the soul or
No,
your soul?
one can change our, I mean, this is talking about the other person. You can, when somebody talks to you, you say, okay, you can change your mind. So a person or one can change his mind or her mind like that.
No, I just want to comment that in all these birthday parties, he starves and he comes back home without eating. Like, or obviously, he controls his mind. That's why he doesn't eat all these.
He's a good devotee.
Yeah, Harman is a special soul.
But yes, he's a good devotee and special soul. But the control of this mind comes with the soul, because the mind can play games with ourselves. Like, I'm trying to understand here the connection between ourselves and the mind.
So see, the mind is a part of our subtle body. So we saw the soul has two coverings. Yeah. One is the subtle body and then the gross body. So the subtle body is composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the mind is an element of the subtle body. We are the soul.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
So
And,
if the
yeah.
If the soul doesn't, what if it's uncontrolled though? Like as you said.
If the mind is uncontrolled, then it becomes our worst enemy, in the sense that it is going to lead to our degradation.
Oh, okay. So basically, you won't even have a chance to elevate back again.
No, everybody has a chance to elevate. It's not that there is a point of no return, but then again, it's like you're running a race and now you fall down. Of course, you can always lift yourself and run again, but then you have lost some precious moments.
Oh, okay. So that's okay. I got it.
Yeah, and when you fall
Thank
down
you.
and get up again, that running will be a little bit more difficult because previously you were going in full speed, but now there is a speed breaker. Something has reduced your speed, that fall down. So then to elevate yourself after falling down, it's going to require that much more effort. If
Okay.
you're lucky, and sometimes people, they fail to get up also. There are many people who fall down, but they don't get elevated again. It is not an
Okay,
impossible
understood.
situation. Okay?
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
So this is the mind battle. Your mind is your best friend if you control it, but your mind is your greatest enemy if it controls you. So we have to always, again, don't identify ourselves with the body. Mind is also part of the subtle body. The soul and the body, they are separate entities. So see in this picture, the heart is at gunpoint holding the, so that brain there indicates the mind. Okay, so at gunpoint, the heart is trying to control the mind. Eventually, when the mind surrenders, then both of them have become best friends. On the right side of the picture, you can see. So why is the heart there holding the gun? Who resides in the heart?
Paramatma, super soul.
Yes, and
And
there are
our
two,
soul.
yeah, the Atma and the Paramatma. Yes. So the super soul is always guiding the soul or guiding us. So therefore, we have to overpower the mind and not let the mind overpower us. Once the mind is brought under control, like a wild animal, no, if when the animal is wild, it is going to harm you. But if you tame the animal, now the tamed animal has now become your best friend. So like that, when the mind is not tamed, is not brought under control, then it is our worst enemy. But once we tame the mind, then it becomes our best friend. So how to do it? Only way to control the mind is to neglect the dictation of the mind and always chant the holy names of the Lord. So chanting the holy name is a very, very powerful way to keep the mind under control. Let's read this.
Bhagavad Gita 6.5 and 6.6, common theme, role of mind as friend or enemy in yoga. So, control mind as a friend. You can control your mind as a friend, follows dictation of super soul, detached. Should I read like that?
Yeah, you can
Or,
read from left so that we can compare the two, left
okay.
to right.
So comparison is between control mind as a friend, uncontrolled mind as an enemy. So a controlled mind follows dictation of super soul, and uncontrolled mind follows dictation of lust, anger, illusion, etc. A controlled mind is detached from sense gratification, whilst uncontrolled mind is attached to sense gratification. A controlled mind, the result of a controlled mind is to elevate us, or it elevates us, whilst the uncontrolled mind, the result is it degrades and we get entangled.
Yes. Okay, let's see 6.7.
जितात्मनः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः.
Translation. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same.
Now for the next three verses, 6.7, 8, and 9, Krishna is going to talk about the symptoms of a person with a controlled mind. So here he's talking about the advanced platform, the Yoga Ruddha stage. So what is the first quality that he's mentioning, 6.7? That one who has a controlled mind, that person is free from dualities, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor. Now let's see what more qualities he mentions in 6.8.
Mataji,
Yes.
question.
Yes.
This sentence, Sitona Sukha Dukheshu, is to such a happiness and distress, is repeated several times, right?
Ah, yes. This point is repeated several times. Yes. So it's important for a devotee to remain equipoised.
Sitona Sukha Dukheshu, it's repeated several times.
Yes, yes. These words are repeated. You're right, Komal. Very observant, huh? Okay. 6.8.
ज्ञानविज्ञानतृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्त्राश्मकाञ्चनः.
Translation. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same.
So for the symptoms of a person who has his mind under control, Krishna says he is triptatma, jnana, vijnana, triptatma. Triptatma, he is completely satisfied. And he's satisfied in what? Jnana and vijnana. So what is jnana? Is knowledge or the knowledge that we acquire. And vijnana is the application of that knowledge. And as we have discussed before, in ideal circumstances, if jnana is 100%, vijnana also should be 100%. So we should apply all that we have. That is the ideal situation. Now, to the extent to which we are not able to transform the jnana into vijnana, the extent to which we are not able to apply that knowledge, then to that extent, the knowledge is going to remain theoretical.
Okay. Mataji, can you repeat? We lost you for a few seconds.
Yeah, for a few seconds.
Okay, okay. So what did I say last? What did you get last?
Jnana,
Jnana and Vijnana, that's it.
Okay, so what is jnana? Jnana is the acquired knowledge and vijnana is the application of that knowledge. Under ideal circumstances, if jnana is 100%, vijnana also should be 100%. Or we should apply the knowledge, all the knowledge that we have. That is the ideal situation. Now, to the extent to which we are not able to apply the knowledge, let's say the jnana is 100, but vijnana is only 80. So to that extent, that 20% remains in only the theoretical stage. It is not in the applied form. Okay. So anyway, so a person who has his mind under control, he is triptatma, he is fully satisfied in jnana and vijnana. Then what Krishna says, he sees everything, whether it is pebbles, stones, or gold. So lostra means pebbles, asma is stone, and kanchana is gold. So he sees pebbles, stones, or gold. He sees everything as the same, sama. So this is another symptom of the person who has his mind control. Now in 6.9, Krishna takes it to an even higher level. He takes it to a higher level. Let's see 6.9.
सुहृन्मित्र्यार्युदासीनम् अध्यस्थद्वेष्य बन्धुषु साधुष्वपि च पापेषु समबुद्धिर्विशिष्यते.
Translation. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral meditators, the envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
So a person is considered still further advanced. So now Krishna is taking a higher level. Previously, he saw stones and pebbles and gold as the same, but here now he's seeing all these categories of people. Suhrin, well-wishers. Mitra, friends or benefactors. Mitrari, so Mitra and Ari. Ari means enemies. Udasina, neutrals. Neutral means they are not in favor of you, they are not against you. They are called as Udasin. Then Madhyastha or the mediators. For example, the judge is a mediator between two parties in the court of law. Then dvesha, those who are envious of you. Bandhusu, those who are your relatives, your well-wishers. Sadhusu, those who are sadhus, those who are the sages. And papeshu, those who are the sinners. One who sees all these categories with samma buddhi, with equal intelligence, that person is vishishyate. He is far more advanced. So we saw Samadarshi in chapter 5. Here Krishna is talking about Sama Buddhir. Let's see the summarized theme.
Summarized theme. Symptoms of Yoga Ruddha stage 6.7 to 6.9. If the mind is made a friend, as per text 6.6, the following symptoms develop. As the realization deepen and grow in the following sequence. First, completely neutral to all material existence and dualities, we saw in 6.7. Second, sees all objects equally, pebbles, gold, stone, we saw in 6.8. Third, fully satisfied with jnana and vijnana, this we saw in 6.8. Fourth is see all people equally, and we reached the stage of most advanced stage, 6.9.
Okay.
Like Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ in what? Seeing all people equally?
Yes, even the
yes.
ones who are killing him.
Yes, definitely.
He said, "Oh Father, please forgive them. They don't know what they're doing."
Exactly, yes, definitely. Okay, so now let's go to section number 3.
Section 3, 6.10 to 6.32. Further stages in the practice of yoga. Krishna describes the practices of Ashtanga Yoga. The result are Yoga Ruddha, the perfectional stage, and ultimately the vision of the super soul.
So now in this section, Krishna is going to describe the practices of Ashtanga Yoga. How to do it. Let's see, 6.10.
Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitah ekaki yata chittatma nirashira parigrahah.
Translation. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness.
Okay, so let's go from bottom top. See that word nir-ashir. So an Ashtanga yogi, first of all, he should be nir-ashir. He should not have any desires. He should not have attraction to anything else. Nir-ashir. Then ekaki, he should be all alone. So he has to be all alone. It's not that he goes to the forest with his family, with his children. That he cannot do, ekaki. And then that place should also be a rahasi. It should be a secluded place. And then when he is nirashir, ekaki, rahasi, then satatam. He must be constant in his pursuits. Not that he practices something during the day and then later he does something else, watch a movie, for example, or practice it for 3 months in a year and the rest of the year he's doing something else. No, satatam. He has to be constant in his practices. So like that, this Ashtanga yogi, he begins his process. Then 11 and 12.
Shuchau deshe pratisthapya sthiramasanamaatmanah natyuchritam natinicham chailajina kushottaram tatraikagram manah kritva yata chittendriyakriyah upavishyasane yunjat yogamatma vishuddhaye.
Translation. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha, grass, on the ground and then cover it with a deerskin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point.
So now 11 and 12 is describing the manner of sitting, how an Ashtanga yogi should sit. So what does Krishna say here? Sucha Deshe. First of all, the place should be a sanctified place. It should be a place of pilgrimage. Then in the third line, see, he says, Na ati utritam, na ati nicham. The place of his place of sitting should not be too high, nor should it be too low. And then he says, Kushotaram. He has to lay kusha grass. Then Chailajina. Then cover that with a deer skin and a soft cloth. Why a deer skin? Because a deer skin repels reptiles, snakes, scorpions. They don't like to walk on the deer skin. Therefore,
What is a deer skin?
the skin of a deer. But that doesn't mean that he goes to the forest and he kills a deer and he uses the... No. In the forest, when the deer are killed by the wild animals, they eat the flesh inside. The skin is not eaten because the skin is hard. So what they do, a deer skin is very easily found in the forest by the Ashtanga yogis. So then they take the skin, they wash it properly, they clean it, and then they use it to sit on top of it. Okay? Is there a problem with it?
Sounds difficult, but okay.
Yeah, the whole Ashtanga yoga process is difficult only. It's not for Kali Yuga at all. Okay, but this is the process. Krishna explains. This is how he has explained the other processes. He's also explaining Ashtanga yoga. But later, in the 18th chapter, Krishna himself says, he says, forget everything that I have taught you. That's the conclusion of the Gita. He says, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja, give up everything. And Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja, just surrender unto me. But we have to learn the other things as well. Why we have to learn it? Because so that we are informed. Krishna is, when we go to the mall, there are so many ways to get to the top floor. You have the lift, you have the moving stairs, you have the normal staircase, and we are informed, okay, this salida is this side, here you have the ascensor is here, the steps are here. So the information is given and we choose what we want to do. So Krishna gives us all the options that are available. Okay, so coming back here, what happens? Yeah, so now he goes to a secluded place, he lays the kusha grass, he covers it with deer skin and the soft cloth, and that sitting place is na ati uchritam, na ati nicham. It's not very high, nor is it too low. Then he sits on it very, very firmly, sthiram asanam. So he still sits on it very firmly, and there he practices the Ashtanga yoga.
समं कायशिरो ग्रीवं धारयन्नचलं स्थिरः सम्प्रेक्ष्य नासिकाग्रं स्वं दिशश्चानवलोकयन् प्रशान्तात्मा विगतभीः ब्रह्मचारिव्रते स्थितः मनः संयम्य मच्चित्तो युक्त आसीत मत्परः.
Translation. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an agitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life.
So here in 13 and 14, Krishna is describing how one should meditate. So first of all, the body, neck, and head, all of them should be in the same straight line. This is good for us also to follow, because when we sit straight with all the three in the same straight line, what happens? The lungs are open, and when we breathe, more oxygen goes into the body. But when we crouch and we sit with a hunch, then the lungs are getting contracted and that much less oxygen goes in the body. So when they sit straight, then more oxygen goes in the body and they feel more energetic. Okay, and then what do they have to do? They have to stare steadily at the tip of the nose. So the eyes are open or the eyes are closed?
Fixated onto me.
No, the eyes are open or the eyes are closed.
I guess closed.
So if the eyes are closed, how does he steadily stare at the tip of the nose?
So it's like staring with the mind, no?
No.
With the nose. No?
Maybe not closed, not open, like slightly open and slightly closed.
Yes, slightly open. It is only slightly open just to be able to stare at the tip of the nose. But the eyes are not fully open, but they are semi-open. Okay, then with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear. So this person should be completely fearless. He's not thinking, oh, what's going to happen if there's going to be an earthquake? What is happening to my family? Is there somebody to protect them? Or or would there be a tiger in the forest and is going to eat me? No, this person has to be completely fearless. And he has to be completely free from sex life. Not that he's engaged in relationship with the opposite sex. And like this, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. So again, here Krishna is telling us, he is the ultimate goal of life. Again, Shastric evidence, people ask us, why only Krishna? There are so many other gods, right? But Krishna himself declared that he is the ultimate goal of life. He is the super soul within the heart. There are so many yogis who meditate on the super soul, on the Paramatma. They want to attain the Paramatma, but they are not ready to accept that Paramatma is none other than Krishna. That they don't want to accept, right? But here Krishna is clearly saying that one should meditate upon me within the heart. So the Paramatma is none other than Krishna himself, and make me the ultimate goal of life. Okay, now this verse here, Krishna says that one has to be devoid of fear, okay, and completely free from sex life. So can a grihastha follow Ashtanga Yoga?
No.
So can a grihastha follow Bhakti Yoga?
Yes.
So this is another advantage. This is another advantage. Grihasthas can follow Bhakti Yoga, but grihasthas cannot follow Ashtanga Yoga. So see here you have a picture of somebody of an Ashtanga yogi, kusha grass, deer skin, soft cloth. He's sitting with his head, body and neck in the same straight line, and his eyes are semi-open. He's looking at the tip of his nose. If you observe well his eyes, and he's meditating on the form of the Paramatma in the forest. So in the modern times, people do yoga or asanas, but they do the asanas or the yoga at the same time they are engaging in sex life or eating meat with karne in their stomach. With meat in the stomach, they are doing the asanas. But these asanas cannot free us from the vasanas. Vasana means what? Lust, yes. So the point here, Krishna is saying here is one must be completely free from sex life when one is doing this process. Okay. But what is happening in the modern times is it's become a fashion to do these asanas at the same time engaging in all kinds of sinful activities. But we have to remember that these asanas cannot free us from the vasanas. Prabhupada writes a very nice purport. Let's read.
Asanas cannot free us from vasanas. No one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught, therefore, from childhood. When one has no knowledge of sex life, children at the age of 5 are sent to the Gurukula or the place of spiritual master, and the master trains the young boys in the strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga, whether it be dhyana, jnana, or bhakti. One who, however, follows the rules and regulations of married life having sexual relationship only with his wife, and that also under regulation, is also called brahmachari. Such a restrained householder, brahmachari, may be accepted in the bhakti school, but the Jnana and Dhyana schools do not admit even householder brahmacharis. They require complete abstinence without compromise. In the bhakti school, a householder brahmachari is allowed controlled sex life because the cult of bhakti yoga is so powerful that one automatically loses sexual attraction, being engaged in the superior service of the Lord.
So Prabhupada uses the term householder brahmachari. That is, one is a grihastha and is uniting with the partner, but under regulations. So such a person is called as a householder brahmachari. So there is no space for householder brahmachari in the other practices. In Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, there is no space for householder brahmacharis. But yes, in Bhakti Yoga, there is space for householder brahmacharis. So this is the Vasana Kama Karma cycle. The Vasana for food leads to the Kama or the desire for food. Now that will lead to the action or the karma itself or the act of eating. And when we engage in the sense gratificatory activity, that reinforces the Vasana. So this is the Vasana Kama Karma cycle. Now see here in the purport, at what age are the children given spiritual knowledge?
5.
Officially 5 years. Yes. At what age do we think we should train the children in spirituality? Or rather, what do most people think? Spirituality is for when we are old. They say, no, you're still too young. This is not the age to teach. Once somebody told, not me, but another teacher who was teaching Bhagavad Gita, the mother was very upset when the teacher spoke about birth, the cycle of birth and death. So she says, is this the age to teach my child about death? Okay, so most people think that children should not be taught these things, but children from the age of 5 onwards should be trained up in this knowledge. That's why at the age of 5, they were sent to the Gurukul and they were taught all these things by the spiritual master. So it's a misconception that this is only for the old age. Let's read this.
Every child's mind is innocent. It is our duty to mold their mind into Krishna consciousness. Parents teach their children using technology at an early age. Similarly, Krishna consciousness should also start at an early age.
So not only technology, but anything, when children are trained up from the beginning itself, let's say the child is very good in dancing, or child is very good at singing, or the child is going to be a very good sports person. The parents can tap the talent of the child. So they train the child from the beginning itself, right? In the same way, even Krishna consciousness should be taught at an early age. It's not something that should be taught when one is 50 years old, 60 years old. The more we postpone it, the more difficult it is for us to follow spirituality. Because as we grow older, then that much the clay has dried up. No, children are like wet clay. They can be molded. But when we keep the clay to mold it later, then that much more difficult it is going to be because the clay starts to dry up. So by the time we are old, then it's that much more difficult to begin something new at that age. And we have seen this verse before. Let's just read the translation of this verse.
Translation. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod.
So say Guru Nasa Syat. One should not become a guru. Swajano Nasa Syat. One should not even become a relative. Pita Nasa Syat. Don't become a father. Janani Nasa Syat. Don't become a mother. Daivam na tatsyan. Don't become a demigod. Na patischasa. Don't become a husband. if you cannot deliver your dependence from the cycle of birth and death. So as parents, if we think that we should not teach our children at a young age, then we are failing in our duty. It's the duty of the parents. If we have children, then it's our duty to make sure that we can deliver our children, because our children are our dependents. So it's our duty to deliver our dependents. If we don't do it, then we are failing in our duties. So let's read this.
Focus of learning, purport 6.11 to 6.14. Text 6.11 to 6.12 refutes so-called yoga societies in big cities. Big cities do not offer such circumstances as expected here for yoga practice. Second, because one who is not self controlled and disturbed in mind cannot practice meditation. Third, therefore, the best means of spiritual realization in Kali Yuga is chanting of the holy names. The references Brahan Naradya Purana. Naradiya Purana. B. Celibacy. Rules of Celibacy by Yagnavalkya, 6.13 to 6.14. The vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, words, and mind at all times, under all circumstances, and in all places. Role of celibacy in Bhakti Yoga. 6.14 purport states strict celibacy is a must for Jnana and Dhyana schools, but only in Bhakti school the conception of householder brahmacharya is allowed. Cult of Bhakti Yoga is so powerful that one automatically loses sexual attraction, being engaged in the superior service of the Lord, and experiences higher taste. References Sri Bhagavad Gita 2.59 Visaya Vini Vartante.
Okay. So control your mind, control your life. Now let's try to understand this with an example. Now there is a car and the car has a driver. Now this driver, he is in control where the car is going to go, isn't it? So the driver's position is the controlling position. Now let's say this driver has a companion who's distracting him constantly. He's constantly talking to him and distracting him. So now if the driver is getting distracted, then is the driver really in the driver's seat? Does the driver has an advantage over the companion? Still, although he is being distracted, does he have an advantage over the companion? Yes or no?
Yes, because he can stop the car whenever he wants.
Yes. So the power of the driver is that he is still in the driver's seat, and the companion cannot dislodge him from that seat. He cannot make him move away from that seat. Yes. So what can the driver do? Because he has a distracting companion, what he can do, he can ignore the companion. And the companion, upon seeing that he is being ignored, finally he may decide to stop distracting, stop talking, and he will fall silent. Now the car, let's compare the car to the body and the driver to the soul. And the distracting companion is the mind. So the mind is always going to distract us, the soul, and distract us from our driving. Okay, distract us from how we are going to use the body in the service of the Lord. So how to control the mind? One way is to just completely ignore the mind and just do our own thing. And eventually the mind may will stop distracting us, or the mind may fall silent. So the lesson is, we tap the mind's power, but we should not be trapped by the mind's power. Now let's say that although we are constantly ignoring, this companion decides that he does not want to stop. He continues to distract, although the driver is ignoring him. Now, what can the driver do? Let's read this.
Tell the companion to leave the car.
No, the companion cannot leave the car. That option is not available. Okay,
So he can just ignore and ignore the companion.
Yeah, so that's what. No, here we see that he is ignoring him, but still the person does not stop talking. Then what he will do? What can he do?
Give him some superior thing.
Is the companion Maya?
The companion here is the mind compared to the mind.
So giving the mind some superior thing so that the mind gets engaged in that.
So that is a later stage. Okay, that's a later stage when the mind becomes your friend. But right now the mind is not he continues to distract the person. And the mind is not going to engage in something else.
No, you put some kirtan. You put some kirtan and bhajans in the car.
So now he can put on some other sound vibration, which is louder than the voice of that distracting companion. So that the driver's focus will shift from the sound of that distracting companion to the sound of the bhajan or the kirtan, as Komal said. Yes? Okay, let's read this.
Yes.
Problem. Presently, the mind keeps chattering constantly and persuading relentlessly, so neglecting it is difficult. So, the solution is to absorb ourselves in someone else's voice. Whose voice? Voice of the Paramatma, Super Soul. He speaks to us internally as the voice of conscience and externally through Guru Sadhu Shastra. When we study scripture and practice meditation, we start sensing Krishna's voice more clearly, making tuning into it easier.
So in the car, the driver can put in some audio, some other sound vibration. In our real life, to make the mind shut up, what we have to tune into?
Holy name, Sankirtana.
The voice of
Chanting.
or the voice of the Paramatma. Because the Paramatma is always speaking to us, always guiding us. So this is one way to control the mind. So in a tempting situation also, as we saw the example of the child in the party going for the cake. So the voice within him, the Paramatma, his consciousness will tell him that, no, I should not have this cake. It's wrong. But the mind will tell him, it's okay, once in a while you can eat. My mom is not watching me. I can eat it. It's okay. It doesn't matter. What does it matter? Who's going to come to know, right? So that's the mind and the Paramatma conflict. So if you turn to the Paramatma, then you distract yourself from the voice of the mind towards the voice of the Paramatma. So this is a verse from 3.42. Okay, we always have the upper hand, because according to this verse, although the mind is higher than the senses, but higher than the mind is intelligence. So with our intelligence, we can control the mind. And even higher than intelligence is us, the soul. So that's why the soul, or we, are in the driving seat. We are higher than the mind. So we are in the driver's seat. That's the advantage that we have. The distracting companion cannot dislodge the driver. So the mind cannot go higher than the soul. The mind is like a dog that barks but cannot bite unless we let it. So if we just ignore, or if we tune in to a sound vibration that is louder, then we can overcome this problem of the mind. But if we allow the mind to overtake us, if we allow the mind to dictate to us, then it is like we are unleashing the dog. So what is influencing our minds the most in the current age? Let's read.
What is influencing our minds the most in the current age? The media is mostly the mind multiplied, magnified, and magnetized. Multiplied. The media pools together the imagination of many people and gives expression to that collective creativity. Everyone has lust, but the media depicts the most lurid fantasies of multiple people, magnified. What might be present in one corner of our mind, the media presents it in full screen before us. Not only that, the media depicts in multicolor what our mind may depict in black and white, magnetized. Just as a magnet attracts iron filings, the media is designed to be like a magnet to captivate us. Most media depictions are made using scientific studies into human psychology about how the mind can be manipulated most effectively.
So what is influencing our minds the most now in Kali Yuga especially? It's the media. So we have to be very careful what we watch. What we watch. So mind your mind to know when it is in order, when on the border, and when out of order. Now let's say we are using a gadget. We are using a laptop. We know when the laptop is in order. Everything is functioning smoothly. It's not crashing. Everything is going well. So we know that the laptop is in order. But once in a while, the laptop crashes or it freezes. Then we know that something is going wrong. It is on the border. So then if we repair it at the right time, then we can get it back in order. But if we don't repair it, if we don't take the necessary steps at the right time and it is on the border, then over a period of time, it's going to go completely out of order. So we should also know, we should know that when our mind is in order, okay, right now, my mind is in order. It's not asking me to engage in wrong activities. Now my mind is my best friend. But sometimes the temptation may come and the mind may lead us towards the wrong way. So now we should know that, okay, now I am on the border. I better check myself here. Not that I don't check myself at the right time and then my mind is completely out of order. So now the degradation, I have already degraded myself. So we should know when the mind is in order, when on the border, and when out of order. So we have to program our mind accordingly. So mind your mind is the lesson we learn. So good habits versus bad habits. When the mind is in order, when the mind is on the border or out of order. So there's a nice quote by His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who's the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. Let's see what he says.
So, on the occasion of Guru Purnima, I think so, you took this quote.
No, it just happened.
Okay.
This slide was prepared from before only.
Okay. In the morning, our first business should be to beat the mind with shoes 100 times, and before going to bed, to beat the mind 100 times with a broomstick. In this way, one's mind can be kept under control.
Okay. So we'll stop here. We'll continue in the next class. Does anybody have a question? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jai.
शिल प्रभुपाद की जय, शिल गुरुदेव की जय, श्री भगवद गीता की जय, श्री नाम माता जी की जय, ऑल भक्त वृंद की जय। थैंक यू माता जी। हरे कृष्ण। कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम।